In 2014, a man named Ethan and his wife, Danny, were spending a weekend together on Vancouver Island, which they had done many times before. The couple has a lot of experience on the island, and just camping in general. Vancouver Island provides an optimal camping setting because of its mix of scenic beaches and dense forest. The couple had many successful camping trips on the island until something truly terrifying happened to them on their final outing on the islands. Ethan and Danny were far from any roads or civilization, enjoying the solitude. They set up camp on a beach, a good distance from anywhere, and kept a fire going to get to the trail. Leaving the beach was a kilometer along the beach and 2 kilometers to the road through the forest. The couple had met another camper named Leon from New Zealand who they ran into earlier that day on the beach. Leon was planning on sleeping in his van, which he parked back up on the road. The couple invited him down to the beach for a fire, and the three shared a bottle of wine, talked amongst themselves around the fire. This is where things started to get a little creepy. The sun was starting to go down by this point, and the trio kept hearing what sounded like female voices from behind them in the bushes, dividing the beach from the forest. It wasn't too dark out yet, though, so it was still possible that they were just other hikers or campers nearby, or even a group who anchored offshore, and the sound was just bouncing in a weird way. All 3 of them could agree that they were hearing female voices, though on that note it was getting late and a little dark, so Leon said goodbye and set out to hike back to his car before it was too dark. Ethan and Danny stayed by their campsite and stoked the fire because Danny was starting to get creeped out by the voices, which continued on into the darkness. It sounded like 2 female voices speaking, but whatever that was being said was unintelligible. It sounded to the couple like the voices were not far beyond the tree line. Now they stayed up very late, tending to the fire, and only when the voices had finally stopped they decided to put out the fire and go to sleep in the tent. Before doing so, the 2 had scanned the cove with a flashlight several times, looking for boats that could have been the source of the talking, but there was nothing in sight. It was around 3 a.m. when they laid down, finally ready to catch some shooty, but about 15 minutes after they laid down, Ethan and Danny heard footsteps in the area around their campsite over by where the fire was. They came from the direction of the bushes toward the inland behind them, a direction that was not traversable by people. The couple lay there hoping it was just a bear or any animal, because the only bears on the island are black bears, which usually are very timid around people. The footsteps went from the fire, then over to the tent, then back into the woods. 5 minutes later, the footsteps came back again to the fire, and now clear as day there were 2 female voices talking gibberish very loudly. Their communication was not resembling any languages known to Ethan or Danny, and they seemed to be talking over each other, having what could barely be considered to be a conversation at full volume in the dead of night, very far away from civilization, without using lights to navigate through the dense brush, relatively quietly in a direction that seemed impossible to traverse on foot. The 2 voices moved from the fire pit area over to the tent, still talking at a loud volume. They stood over the tent talking for a few seconds, then went completely dead as night. Silent, they went back into the woods to never be seen or heard again. Ethan and Danny lay there completely frozen and afraid for a long time. They woke up around 11 a.m. the next day because of how late they fell asleep. They packed up first thing and never returned. The couple probably made the best decision to remain quiet in the tent, not drawing attention to themselves from whoever or whatever was outside. She started coming across strange symbols and animal parts scattered throughout the forest, some of them in weird formations. On September 15th, she decided to bring her friend Josh along with her to show him in person the unusual things she was finding. This time the 2 came across something even more disturbing. On the trail there was a severed deer head and a pentagram surrounded by deer legs, which were not there the first time Kylie walked the trail. The sun was going down, and after getting their pictures, they agreed it was time to head back to the car. But the more they walked, they realized they didn't recognize the path they were on, so the 2 started looking around for anything that could refresh their memory of where they were. But as it got dark out, the 2 accepted that they were lost with nothing but their phone flashlights to navigate. They started getting the feeling they were being watched as they picked up their pace the two started to hear the trees and bushes moving at least 20 feet to their right, made more concerning by the fact that there was no wind that night. The two started to panic and hurried onto a trail they found, hoping it would take them back to Kylie's car. Just when things couldn't seem to get any worse, Kylie and Josh heard a scream so deep and horrific that it sounded neither human nor animal. The two sprinted down the trail, Kylie making a conscious effort not to look back, but Josh did, and Josh claimed to see a large black figure on the trail behind them, too big to be a human. The two made it to the car by some stroke of luck, losing whatever was chasing them, so they left the forest and went straight home. Upon doing research, Kylie found documents of common cult practices reported in those woods, as well as numerous murders and disappearances that happened in the area throughout the years, like Ethan and Danny in the first story. Kylie has not returned. 10th. The following pictures you're about to see were taken by hikers Kylie Cashwell and John Stone, who both live in Eagle Mountain, Utah, a small town south of Salt Lake City. For the past few years, they had been exploring forests in search of interesting things, and one day, they found it. One day Kylie was hiking in Cedar Fort, just 5 miles south of Salt Lake City. While hiking, she found large amounts of animal bones and piles of junk people had dumped, but things started to get strange when